The other day I noticed on the 1988 Honda Prelude that the transmission was kind of covered in what I believe to be transmission fluid. So I'm thinking it's leaking, and I don't think it's really anything wrong with the transmission because I just put it in the new manual transmission like what, a half a year ago, 6 months. And I think the issue is that I used maybe the wrong washer on the drain and fill plugs. So I think it might be leaking out of there. What I'm going to do today is jack up the Prelude. I went to Honda and I picked up a bunch of goodies, some manual transmission fluid amongst some other little items that I'll show you. And I'm going to basically drain out all the tranny fluid out of this Prelude, put in new stuff, put in new washers, tighten it down to torque spec, and hopefully that should do the trick. But always good to change the fluid anyways. Check this out. The camera doesn't probably do it justice, but I've got 2 new dimples on my hood, which I'm super not stoked on. Acorns. Real pain in the ass. It's just that time of year again, man, and I still don't have a garage space. So these cars unfortunately sit outside and they're just exposed to the elements, which includes acorns. What can you do, you know? So to do this, I've got wood blocks. I've got this homemade little funnel system that I'm going to use to basically hold above the transmission and let the transmission fluid run through this and into the transmission, since you have to kind of gravity feed it. We've got the jack, torque wrench, sockets. Again, I'll show you the parts and the part numbers in a bit. Jack stands, oil drain pan, and a couple of wheels, because what I have to do is when you're putting manual transmission fluid in, you have a drain bolt and a fill bolt. You want to unplug them both, drain it out, put the drain bolt back in, and then fill it through the fill bolt until it starts pouring back out of you. In order to get a proper measurement and have it come out at the right time when it's supposed to be backflowing, you need to have the car level. If it's not level, then your transmission's not level and your fluid's not level. I'm gonna first drive it up on wood blocks because it's so low. I have to do that in order to get the jack stand under it. Wood blocks up front, and then in the rear I need to put these tires underneath the rear wheels along with like a cinder block in order to get the back up, because I only have 2 jack stands for the front. So that's what I'm gonna do. I know it's kind of a lot. It'll make more sense as I do it. Front up. Prelude is full hovercraft right now. I've got the front up on jack stands. The rear is still on the jack, and I've put those wheels underneath it. They're not actually touching the rear tires, but in case the jack fails, they'll land on that, which will buy me plenty of space if I happen to be under the car. So not too worried about that. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about with the leaking from the transmission. Underneath the transmission, you can see kind of how wet things are. I mean, right here, it's literally dripping. This transmission is kind of hot, so I'm wondering if it's drained out a lot of fluid just by slow leaking. So it's a good thing we're doing this. But here is the drain bolt, and right up there is your fill bolt. And what I've done is I'm going to take out both of those and replace the crush washers on them, because I'm pretty sure that might be the reason why it's leaking. I'm hoping, at least, because that would be an easy fix. So we'll find out. I'm going to go ahead and get the oil pan underneath this, pop this drain bolt and the fill bolt out, let it drain, and we will go from there. Fill bolt's loose. The fill bolt is going to be a 17 millimeter. All right, so nothing's coming out there. That's kind of what I was worried about, which means that it's a little low. So next up, you just take your socket off of the ratchet, and you stick the ratchet 3/8 right into the drain bolt, and you're going to go ahead and break that one loose. Oh, golly. Okay. Oh, and I kind of missed a little bit, so there we go. Fluid is draining. All right, that's one way to do it. Here's our two transmission bolts. This is the 17 mil fill bolt with its washer on there. And then I've also got the drain bolt with its washer on there. Now what I did with these was I went to the auto parts store and just tried to find crush washers that would fit 90% of the way on these because I couldn't source them. I didn't realize Honda still stocked them. So I do actually now have some OEM Honda gaskets or washers. So I picked up about a half a dozen of both styles. So I'll go ahead and hopefully see if these fit a little bit better. So this one would be for the drain bolt. Very nice fit, though I do believe the one I used before would have also worked. So I don't think this was the issue. These bigger ones here should be for the fill bolt, which let me take off the old one. There's the old crush washer. Here's the new one. That should fit right up and over that pretty snug, but it does feel about the same. So I think on these ones I picked up from the auto parts store, I think they're actually pretty close. Hopefully this is the cause of my transmission leak and it's not something else, because if it's something else that just leads to more issues. So hopefully these new OEM crush washers will work. I will go ahead and throw up the part numbers right now for both of them on the screen for the drain plug as well as the fill plug. New crush washers, OEM. I should make note too that the crush washer for the drain bolt, the smaller of the two on the manual transmission, it's actually the same washer that goes on your oil drain plug. At least that's what the guy at Honda told me. So if you're in need of that part as well, like I was, you could always just source a oil drain plug washer for the Prelude. Should be the same style. Transmission looks to be done pouring out all the fluid, so I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to put the drain plug back in there, and then we can pop the hood and start filling up fluid until it pours back out at us. Got the drain bolt here with the new washer on it. The torque specs on that one are going to be 29 foot-pounds. So I'll set the torque wrench and switch to a 3/8 head on that. I'm going to set this to 29 foot-pounds. Should be right about there. And now we can go ahead, pop this drain bolt back in, and we can get to filling up the fluid. Okay. Drain bolt is on. Clicked it at 29 foot-pounds. Do things right, folks. Get yourself a torque wrench. I will say though, this one, it goes up to 150 foot-pounds. So it's definitely made for the heavier style foot-pound torque wrenching. If you do stuff on smaller bolts a lot of the time, especially engine work, you're probably going to want an inch-pound torque wrench or something that is better at the smaller, lower end of foot-pounds. This one is better for, like I said, upwards to like anything above like 30 foot-pounds and up. This thing will do the trick. Once you start getting below 30, especially in the inch-pounds, when you don't need a lot of torque, you want something a little more accurate with a smaller torque wrench. But little tidbit, get yourself a torque wrench. It's useful. The drain bolt in, now it's time to pop the hood on the Prelude. Yeah, we're handed. And we're gonna go ahead and put our funnel somewhere over here by the distributor and start filling up all the transmission fluid through the fill bolt hole. We've got the funnel. As you saw before, I just attached some, I think that was like transmission line and then maybe some vacuum line in a smaller diameter, but you probably can't tell. I'll show you underneath the car, but it goes down. And if you can see right there, that hose coming down from above right into the hole for the fill bolt. So basically what we're gonna do is put the drain pan back underneath the car and start pouring the new fluid in until it comes back out of the fill bolt. That's why it was so crucial to get the car level, is you need the transmission level so that way it knows when it's full and it's not leaning one way or the other and you end up either over or under filling the transmission. Typically I'll use the the Pennzoil Synchro Mesh, but today since I was at the dealership I figured I would just get some manual transmission fluid, Honda Genuine, so I picked up 3 quarts and I'm thinking it's going to take at least 2 quarts to fill up that transmission. So I'm going to just go ahead, like I said, start pouring in the funnel, put the oil pan back underneath there to catch any of the extra, and we'll just fill it up until it starts pouring back out at us. First quart of Honda transmission fluid. manual transmission fluid is going in. Dude, I can hear these acorns still falling on my truck, man. This is, I'm gonna have to like reposition the cars or find massive car covers. Can't be having freaking acorn dents in all my vehicles, man. It's like hail damage. All right, that's the first quart. I'm gonna just check it just to be sure that it's not already overfilling, but it shouldn't be, so I'll move on to the second quart. Quart number 3, still not draining out yet, so I'm gonna put probably like maybe upwards to half of this quart in and see if that does the trick. You can see it still draining out, so I'm just gonna go ahead and let that drain for a bit until it stops. Once it stops, it should be full, and that's how you know you're all done. So we're nearly there, folks. I gotta go ahead and grab the fill bolt to put back in, grab the torque spec for that one, and we're almost finished up here. Once that's all done draining, we'll put the fill bolt in. That one is torqued down to, I believe, 33 foot-pounds, so just a little more than the drain bolt. So pop that on there, and we'll go ahead and reinsert the fill bolt with the new crush washer from Honda. Little update, I wasn't able to actually put the torque wrench on that fill bolt to get it torqued to spec. The subframe's in the way. I literally can't get a wrench on it unless I were to use my torque wrench with like a little elbow pivot point, if you know what I mean. I just can't get the angle on it that I need to get it to seat on that bolt. So we got it good and tight. We're gonna go with that, and hopefully that doesn't leak. I don't know how they get a torque wrench on that at the factory. I also swapped this car with a manual transmission, so maybe the subframe for the automatic and the manual are different. I don't know, but I'm here to let you guys know my experience. So that's it. Drain and fill bolt are in. New transmission fluid is in. Should be in good shape. Dude, these things, man, these things are denting my cars. Look at this. This thing has got weight to it, man. It's like a little tomato, but like a cement tomato. It just puts freaking dents in my car. Before I put it away, I want to show you guys my little setup. So some guys buy the fluid that comes in a pouch that you can just push and compress into the transmission, and then you can do it that way. Some guys use the pump and pump it up from like below the transmission up into the transmission. Personally, I think the easiest way is gravity fed, so you just grab yourself some, I think this was transmission line, and then I put a little extension piece of, I think maybe this is fuel line, just kind of mashed them together, put this one up and over the funnel neck, and there you go. You've got a transmission fill device. So, little DIY for you guys. Success. Had to reorganize the parking here a little bit, so I moved the truck to this side so that way hopefully it's not catching as many acorns. So, you know, hope for the best there. I do have a car cover that I try and keep on this thing, though unfortunately I don't think a fabric is going to prevent acorns from denting the Prelude. So I'll have to find a safe enough place to park this thing in the driveway. But it definitely needs a wash, so I went ahead and rotated the cars around. I'm going to wash the Prelude, give it a good rinse, because it is pretty nasty. For those of you that are interested in not only the Prelude, but also the Tacoma content, the first gen 98 Taco 4x4. I've got some goodies. I'll do a little sneak peek here for an upcoming video. I went ahead and purchased some Chevy leaf springs. These are Chevy 63s off of a 1998 C1500 Chevy, I believe. And we're gonna basically be putting those onto the Tacoma. They're 3/4, I think, half-ton, either both half-ton and 3/4 truck leaf springs. So they're gonna be wicked overkill for my 1/4-ton Tacoma. But the good thing is they are much better at hauling loads. So I've got the weight of the camper, all that wood for the camper build in the back. And not to mention, it's gonna give me some lift. And thirdly, it will also give me way more flex for wheeling. The rear axle will be able to stay much lower onto the ground while the rest of the car, you know, flex. It's good stuff, especially when you're wheeling. So that's a work in progress. I gotta pick up parts, rebuild those leaf springs, paint them, so look forward to that video. And then I'm just gonna slowly, piece by piece, start buying all the suspension components for the 98 Tacoma, which includes front shocks, springs, possibly new upper control arms, the Chevy Leafs. I've got to get a Chevy Leaf Chevy 63 swap kit for the Tacoma. That needs to be basically welded on. You have to cut off the old Leaf hangers and move them up and weld on new ones. So it's a whole thing, but I wanted to give you guys a sneak peek because it's going to be upcoming here. One thing that I'm running into is I wish I had a welder. I wish I had a shop, honestly. If I had a shop, I would do so much more, but I don't have space for a welder. I don't really have a place to weld. I know you can do it outside, but hauling a welder up and down these stairs inside and out of my house is not really ideal. So I'll have to bring it to someone to weld it, the hangers on there for me, and that will be a really cool video. I've already got someone lined up. He's awesome at doing this type of work, so look forward to that. I'm gonna go ahead and wash this Prelude off. So the Prelude is all kind of put back together, back on the ground. It's actually been a couple days that I've been driving this car now, and it definitely shifts a hell of a lot smoother. I have a feeling that only about half a quart to 1 quart of transmission fluid came out of that transmission, so it's definitely leaking. The issue I'm having is I'm still seeing a little bit of dripping, which I can't really show you until I jack up the car, but trust me, it is still dripping a little bit, so I'm not 100% sure where that's coming from. One other place I'll probably have to check is going to be the vehicle speed sensor, which is on the transmission. It bolts down, at least mine does. I have the mechanical speed sensor, not the electronic, but you know, it's kind of the same thing. That could be potentially a weak point where transmission fluid, I suppose, when it's, you know, swashing around in there while I'm driving and heating up and expanding, it could be leaking out of that VSS port, that little hole that the speed sensor goes into. So I'll have to do a little more digging. It's a very slow leak. I can drive on it for almost 6 months and be fine. I will continue to top it off until I sort out the full leak and figure out exactly where it's coming from, but I wanted to show you guys the update. That is basically the proper way to do it. I think my transmission just has a leak from elsewhere. So hope this helps some of you guys out. If you're doing a manual transmission fluid swap on a 3rd gen Prelude, it should be identical, if not very similar to this process. So good luck with your projects, folks. Keep elevating. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this one. Comments below. Subscribe if you're new. I will see you all in the next one. Adios.